Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Good afternoon all. Welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University Ahmedabad Open Online Video Session. Today we are going to discuss first year BA ENGM 101, Principal Subject English, paper number 101, and today we have to discuss block number 3, unit number 17, part 2. So let's discuss block 3, unit 17, which is regarding part 2. Part 1 is already discussed in the previous session, and now we are going to discuss literature, criticism and theory in session number 2 of unit 17. So let's go for understanding of part 2. Literary criticism. This is the first important thing that which we are going to study in this part number 2. Critic is an alteration of an archaic word that referred generally to criticism. Look, so the most important thing that is discussed over here is about understanding of the literary work, understanding and criticizing the literary work, judging the literary work. So it's an archaic word and it refers generally as criticism. Views on literary criticism. So our basic focus is on literary criticism in comparison with it will be compared, and it has many different parts also which could be taken over here, which could be known as kinds of criticism, types of criticism. Certain critical parts are structuralism, post-structuralism, theories of criticism. So almost all these things would be taken over here in the main trajectory, in the main term of literary criticism. So first thing that comes in a mind of a critic, that is, it is a process of judging the work of art. Look, a perfect judge will read each work of wit. So wittily studying the work of art is known as criticizing. It is known as criticism. To judge the poets, there is a need of faculty of poets and not everyone's task. So naturally, judging the critical work must contain certain in-depth knowledge of certain particular work. If you are judging the epic, or if you are judging the poetry, or if you are judging the short story, or whether you are judging the novel, generally people judge the novel, then naturally they should have read at least that particular novel. They must know what is the genuine form of the novel, what kinds of the novels could be written, what is the important thing in the novel, what is the setting of the novel. Then if you know certain things, then and thenly you will be allowed to speak or judge or comment about that novel. So that is the same thing which could be mentioned over here in criticism. Literary criticism is a reasoned account. Any particular criticism deals with a particular genuine logical reason with interpretation, a reasoned account of the feeling produced upon the critic. The critic is giving the judgment, the critic is justifying the work of art, or the critic is commenting or complimenting the work. It naturally means that the critic is connected with that work, and that's why we can say that there are certain subjective elements, certain individualism of the critic, certain individual ideology of the critic would be found in a judgment, in a criticism. Criticism considers to be text that is missing, what the reader's system of expectations. So whatever the things are not seen in the fictional work or in the work of art is seen in the criticism. There is a saying about metaphysical poetry, that metaphysical poetry concerns with conceit. Things which are not seen are hidden in metaphysical poetry, that is known as conceit. And the same thing could be mentioned over here with the criticism. because criticism also deals with certain things which are hidden, which are not displayed. As for example, there are two lines written in a work of art, but in both these two lines, in the middle part is not written, and whatever is not written will be discussed or implemented or disclosed by the critic. So criticism is a kind of a judgment, it's a kind of a critical analysis of the work of art. Evaluation, so readily taken for granted as the first purpose of criticism, it might be. So it is said that criticism deals with evaluation. We can say that it is a kind of a evaluation. Objectives of literary criticism. What are the purposes? What are the main point of views? What are the perspectives for literary criticism that we have to discuss? To broaden the literary understanding about the author, author's style, author's structure, his genre, on which particular genre he is working, on which aspects and perspectives he has been taking in his work of art, in her work of art, is an important factor to be criticized in literary criticism. To evaluate literary work from various perspectives. So look over here, we can see that there are many perspectives which is mentioned over here, and through which one has to do the criticism, one has to evaluate the literary work. So it is actually the matter of findings. As in research there are findings, in the same way criticism also deals with findings, to place the authors on the basis of their contribution. So the critic, it is the duty of the critic that he categorizes the author, that Shakespeare could be kept in the first category, Milton must be kept in the first category. But if you talk about Nash, Lodge, Greenpill, the university wits, they could be kept in the second category. Of course first, but in the second category in compared to the great geniuses like William Shakespeare and Milton and many other great, Homer and many other the greatest writers. So in that way categorization also deals with criticism, to evaluate the work of art, to place the authors where the author is, where is his place, in that way, to help a reader choose a better option in reading. The reader should have to choose which work is written for him and which work is written for the kindergarten or for the children who were of the young age. Naturally, the children of the young age would read, ultimately they would read Panchatantra and Aesop's stories and fairy tales, and the young kids, those who are the adults and those who are the younger ones, they would ultimately read the novels of Walter Scott and the novels of romantic novel writers like Jane Austen and Mary Shelley and many other authors. So these categorization is also related with criticism. The critic's duty is to do the proper analysis of the work of art and to put that work in a proper category. So to help a reader choose a better option in reading, to place the authors on the basis of their contribution, and to evaluate the literary work. I think this second, third and fourth point, which are shown over here in the PowerPoint presentation, they genuinely represent the objectives of literary criticism. They are the three main objectives of literary criticism. Of course, all the 7 objectives are important, but second, third and fourth point are the most important, and they are the answer to the literary criticism. To improve critical and interpreting abilities, look, one is capable of explaining certain things, one is capable of elaborating many topics, but if he or she has to critically analyze, if he or she has to critically interpret certain abilities of the author, then you would come to understand that yes, he has that critical analysis ability. He can be considered in the matter of criticism, in the factor of criticism. So criticism naturally deals with analyzing, interpreting, and there is a matter of critical interpretation and critical analysis to explore various possibilities and expand imagination. So naturally, criticism deals with multiple possibilities, plenty of possibilities, and it expands imagination also, because the critic has to think beyond the work of art. The critic is outside the work, the author is inside the work, but the critic is the person who is aloof from the work, and still he could do the judgment. So he could expand the imaginations to enhance empathetic abilities. Critic's duty is to enhance the empathetic ability. His duty is to judge the work of art, and in the same way he or she should have to enhance that work of art, enhance that ability emphatically to explore that particular work. The history of criticism. Look, before discussing the criticism, we should have to see what is the genuine history of the criticism. It started onwards from Plato, 427 BC. Then there was previously there was Socrates, then there was Plato, and in the same tradition of generation, finally there was Aristotle, then Longinus, and then many other critics. So the criticism began in Greek antiquity, and it started from Socrates, then Plato, and onwards. The father of Western philosophy. Look, Aristotle is known to be the father of Western philosophy, and he is the founder of principles of criticism. And there is a medieval era to the modern era. There are various canons to judge literature, and there are major approaches to criticism. So there are three things that you must understand clearly. One is criticism, another is the approaches, third one is the theories, and fourth one is the method. Three and four things that you should have to understand. Criticism is a different thing. It's the biggest trajectory under which the approaches come, and the theories are the matter to be implemented on the particular work of art, and the method is related with the theory, and criticism could be considered as the main application for the work of art. So these are the two main things that should be clear in the mind of the student. Criticism, approaches, theory, and methods, all these four things are not equal, they are different, and that you must be clear about it. Historical criticism. It is a general perception that every writer is the product of his age. Look, there is a genuine saying that the writer reflects the society. The work of art reflects the society, because literature is the mirror to the society, and that's why we can universally and oppose, of course we can say that writer is the product of his age. The historical criticism studies the era in which the author lives that time on the literary work. As for example, if we talk about Shakespeare, naturally the effects of the Elizabethan age would be found in the work of Shakespeare's. If you see Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, Bernard Shaw, or any other Victorian writer, naturally you would see the impressions of Victorian era in his or her work. So the author represents the work of art, and that is what is said over here in the matter of historical criticism. The history, the period of time is reflected and represented in that work of art. That is what is said over here. Look, here there is an example of the novels of Victorian era. Historical criticism helps to understand the influences of literature. As for example, Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, Charlotte Bronte, Bernard Shaw, etc. Biographical criticism deals with the biographies of the particular authors. Biographical criticism relies heavily on life of the author for a better understanding of the intent of the author and critics. So naturally the author's lives, the author's experiences, the author's perspectives, the author's individual being, his inner life is reflected in his or her biography. There are various famous biographies of film stars. If you know, Amitabh Bachchan's biography is available. Twinkle Khanna, she is also fond of writing the biographies, and they are found in English language, and they are very famous, even popular. Generally, we can say that they are the contemporary popular biographies that you can read also, and you can get it in many bookstores also. Biographical criticism deals with those biographies which are written by the authors. It deals with how the work is colored by the author's experiences. As I told you, look, it is about the author's individual experiences, beliefs, and prejudices. The biography of Virginia Woolf, that is her inner life, Henry James by Leon Edel, there are 5 volumes. They are found between 1953 to 1972. And of course, there is a very famous biography of James Joyce, if you know, and it is by Richard Alman during 1959. Dickens' biography is also written by Ackroyd in 1990. So there are very famous biographies which were available on particular great persons, politicians even. Even there is a biography, you can find the biography of Indira Gandhi also, Jawaharlal Nehru also, Prime Minister Narendra Bhai Modi also. So in that way, the biography is a kind of a write-up of a particular human being, individual being, and the criticism which is done on certain biography is known to be the biographical criticism. Didactic criticism deals with teaching and pedagogy. Naturally, the word didacticism itself suggests us about the moralistic element, about the genuine pedagogical element of that particular criticism. Teaching is one of the functions of literature and one of the ways to look at a literary work. It is to study the message which is conveyed, lessons taught through the literary work. The approach inquires into the moral value of the work and accepts or rejects it is based upon its compatibility. As for example, Plato was having the habit to discuss that if the poetry should be written, there should be only those poetry which gives the teaching, which gives the moral lesson. Any poetry which is provided for the sake of entertainment must be removed. He is totally against the art for the art's sake concept, and he is totally against the entertainment kind of the concept which is reflected from literature. So naturally, didactic criticism deals with the theories of Plato. Plato had given all these theories in his Ion work, and he has given the same theories in Republic also. So both these things regarding the didactic criticism could be found in Plato's Ion and the Republic. Now, there are some important things that we have to remember about new criticism. There are basically two big trajectories, old criticism and new criticism. But you are supposed to write everything in a general form under the name of criticism only. So, Wolfram, Womack and Robbins in their book Key Concepts in Literary Theory. Look, this is the name of the book, Key Concepts in Literary Theory, and from there this is the excerpt, the quotation which is given about the definition of the theory. You must understand what is criticism, what are the approaches, and what's the definition of the theory. Three things are quite different. You can't merge everything over here and write it in a general form. All the three things are quite different. Theory is a loosely wielded term which means literary studies, critical movement which has emerged in the Anglo-American universities since the 1960s as a response in large part to interest within the English-speaking academic world, in particular strands of continental linguistics, narratology, psychoanalysis, semiotics and philosophy. So basically, theory deals with the working of the particular philosophy, particular theory, particular approach. If certain approach is worked upon, if certain approach is taken as a part of methodology, and that approach is implemented on a particular work of art, this is a kind of a theory. As for example, let me take an example of psychoanalysis. Everybody of us, we know what is in Shakespeare's Hamlet. Hamlet wanted to see that how his father was killed, and why his uncle had done certain kind of things, certain uh, irresponsible things, certain things which were not okay for Hamlet's life. So naturally, in the drama of Hamlet, we can see there is a reflection of Oedipus complex, and this reflection of Oedipus complex only could be studied after studying Hamlet's psyche, after studying Hamlet's mindset. What happens in his psyche is reflected in the drama also, and it could be studied in Oedipus complex also. So both the study of Hamlet's mindset, Hamlet's psychological situation, and in the things that happens in Oedipus complex, all these three things together, if they are studied with a particular psychological perspective, then it is known as the study of Hamlet with a view to psychoanalytical approach. So in that way, we have to, or the student has to, the researcher has to, or the critic has to implement the theory of the critical theory of the criticism on a particular fictional work, or a non-fictional prose, or on discourses, or any work of art. So in that way, the theory works. Theory is a kind of action. Theory is a kind of method which could be implemented on the work of art. Look, there are the names which are written over here in New Criticism, major exponents. They are I.A. Richards, T.S. Eliot, John Crow Ransom, Alan Tate, Robert Penn Warren, William Empson, and Clint Brooke. As you know, I.A. Richards is very much famous for practical criticism and his figurative language in poetry, and four meanings. There are four kinds of meaning from the figurative language in poetry: sense, feeling, tone, and intention. These are the four meanings of figurative language. And T.S. Eliot, you know, he has talked a lot and written a lot about tradition and individual talent of an author or a person or a creative writer. J.C. Ransom, Alan Tate, and Robert Penn Warren, they are also related with the theories of New Criticism. William Empson and Clint Brooke, naturally we know they were the main persons who had discussed about the theories of structuralism and cultural theories. Clint Brooke has discussed cultural theory also. In the same way, now we are supposed to study structuralism, which is the most important, I think, in criticism, the most important trajectory, or the most interesting trajectory, is known to be structuralism. Saussure and Derrida, Claude Lévi-Strauss, and Roland Barthes, these are the four main great structuralists. They had given the theory of structuralism, post-structuralism, as well as deconstruction. You know that Claude Lévi-Strauss, he had given the theory of structuralism when he had talked about bricolage in one of the conferences at international conferences, and in presenting the research paper, he had written the theory of structuralism. And Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist and semiotician's course in general linguistics in 1916, he had given the theory of structuralism. The basic ideology of structuralism is to discuss vernacular meanings of the text, and the text lies in the structures it employs. And the main theory of deconstruction deals with the meaning is outside the center. In the center part of the text, that is the meaning, and there are multiple meanings which are outside the text. The main meaning is in the center, and the hundreds of plenty of other meanings, they are outside the center. They are on the circumference area, they are on the margin of that center. If it is a round and there is a center, then that is the actual thing of structuralism. So Let's discuss after structuralism there occurs reader's response theory, structural criticism and criticism. All the three things which are mentioned over here, that which we are supposed to take over here. Text is written, the reader, his or her meanings, the reader that creates the meaning. The promoters of this theory are Norman Holland, Stanley Fish, Wolfgang Iser, Hans Robert Joss and Roland Barthes. But I tell you clearly that you are supposed to remember two main names in this reader's response theory. Apart from the almost all the four names are mentioned over here, you should have to remember Wolfgang Iser only and Hans Robert Joss for this reader's response theory. And basically the reader's response theory deals with the fictional text or non-fictional text, where the reader is an important factor. Reader is in the center of the theory and the author's role is ended over here. That is what is the concept behind this theory, reader's response theory. The reaction of the readers to the text. Look, the reader reads the text and afterwards what he thinks, what is in his mind, what are the reflections of that text after reading that particular novel, they are very much important in reader's response theory. The reader is in the center, reader is in the focus, and reader is the main important factor in this theory. Structural criticism. Now look, discussing about the structural criticism. Of course we had discussed about structuralism and post-structuralism, so we don't have to repeat all these things, but still let us read the important thing over here. This approach studies the text, that nothing is outside the text, and the form and use of symbolism, metaphor, analysis is solely on content basis. So here mainly the structure deals with the center. So the structure is in the center and the meanings are on the periphery. Structure and periphery, these are the two main things which is mentioned in structural criticism. As well, you can write the same things in post-structuralism and structuralism. Criticism, as we had already discussed, but still it is mentioned in your course. So we had taken over here a kind of discourse that advances the consciousness of readers, look, and it develops a better understanding of a literary work. So naturally it is the ideology of readers as well as the critic. Both the readers and the critic are same. When the reader reads, he is the reader, and the critic also reads, he could be considered the reader also. So critic or the reader, both are equal. When they judge, justify, evaluate, criticize, all these things go with the word criticism. Feminist theory, then psychoanalysis theory, eco-criticism, and basically what is theory. These would be the four main things which we have to end up over here, but we have to see what actually comes in feminist theory, that which we have to take in the next session. So we can end up the session over here. Let's end up the session. Goodbye all. God bless you all.
स्वाध्यायः